Okay, we are picking up the very end of Act 3. And I'm going to try to get us through. No, we're not going to get all the way through Act 4. We'll get quite a ways. Where we left off the other day, Hamlet finishes his conversation with his mother. He gives her advice on how to develop a positive, virtuous habit, specifically not going to bed with her husband. And asks her, finally, the last thing essentially, don't tell Claudius. I'm trying to think how to put this. Well, let me see what he says. Pinch wanton on your cheek. This is 183 or 184, I can't tell. Pinch wanton on your cheek, call you his mouse, and let him, skip line and half, make you to ravel all this matter out, that I essentially am not in madness, but in craft. Okay? You've got a gloss somewhere down there. In my essential nature, that it's at my core, I'm not crazy, but I'm crazy in craft, in making, in fantasy, etc., in to produce something. 'Twere good you let him know, for who that's but a queen, fair sober wives, would from a paddock, from a batted jib, such dear concernings hide. Okay? She says, if words be made of breath and breath of life, I have no life to breathe what thou hast said to me. What is she not going to tell Claudius? She's not going to tell him the stuff that Hamlet has alluded to about Claudius killing her husband. Okay? He is going to allow Claudius to think that Hamlet's madness isn't real. And then Hamlet reminds her, I'm on my way to England. You remember that, right? She says, I completely forgot. Hamlet, there's letters sealed. And what he means by that is, on my way to England, I or others will be bearing letters that, by saying that they're sealed, what Hamlet literally means by that is no one really knows the contents of those letters, other than the person who wrote them / produced them. Yet Hamlet suggests he knows the content of those letters. And it's not clear how. So he says, there's letters sealed, and my two schoolfellows, whom I will trust as I will adders fanged, they bear the mandate. That is, they bear the orders to England. England referring to the king, not the country. I'm on my way to England, that is, to the country, obviously, but to the king for the king to do something with. Why does he say he's going to trust Rosencrantz and Guildenstern as adders fanged? Put the adders fanged in our terminology as rattlesnakes. Okay? What did they say when he first saw them and asked them, why are you here? They lied. He says, I'll tell you why you're here. You're here to try to figure out what's wrong with me. They must sweep my way. And you've got a gloss down there. Clear my path. What he means by that is they are kind of preparing me for my actions. So they must sweep my way and marshal me to knavery. Marshal. They are setting me up to this. Not setting me up like to trick me. setting me up like a general marshals his troops for battle, arranges them, sets them in specific places to make sure that the battle is a victory. Okay? Knavery, he's describing his actions against them. You never want to be called a knave. A knave is always someone who's a little bit duplicitous, who you can't trust, who's not looking out for your well-being. All right? So he's saying, I'm going to be that. Duplicitous, not looking out for their well-being, etc., to them, to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Let it work. That is, let my knavery work, let their marshaling my way to knavery work. For 'tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own petard. That's a phrase, it's still used today. I saw it somewhere in an article in the last 2 weeks. Not used in the context of talking about Hamlet. It was used in a political context. Okay? I think it had something to do with the trial in Atlanta, the Trump trial in Atlanta. So what does that mean? 'Tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own petard. Your gloss for engineer petard makes it sound like this is a military stratagem. That is, these are military explosives being used to blow a door in so that you can take the room, so to speak. That's not what's being described here. The context is important for glosses as well as just regular interpreting. The context comes in the following lines. We're going to come back to the engineer hoist with his own petard in a minute. And it shall go hard, but I will delve 1 yard below their mines and blow them at the moon. The engineer, the petard, is referring to mining explosives. Okay? The engineer is the miner who sets a charge to blow something up to get it ore in the ground. What is Hamlet saying? It's the sport. It's and we've heard sport before in Midsummer Night's Dream, when Puck says, I take their jangling as a sport. All the word sport means is something for spectators to watch and enjoy. In that sense, a drama is a sport. Okay? Hamlet's saying, it's kind of fun to watch somebody blow themselves up with explosives. It's kind of, sick mindset. Usually today when we hear or read about people blowing themselves up with explosives, it's because they're attempting to make a bomb or a terrorist incident. 'Tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own, lift it up, hoist with his own petard. And it shall go hard, but that is, it's going to be difficult, but I will delve 1 yard below their mines. Now, what are their, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern's, mines? They're obviously not literal mines. He's talking about being on the ship. It's their plans. Because why does an engineer set a charge to blow up the ground? It's to get at what's within. What is the thing within that Hamlet ultimately is talking about? The sealed letters. He's suggesting, I'm going to get at these sealed letters. And the sealed letters will be the mine that he's going to blow up. How so? Later on, in Act 4, and he alludes to it again in Act 5, we're going to be told Hamlet gets control of the letters. He unseals the packet, and he replaces the letter inside with the letter he has written. And he's going to tell us, I'm not wearing it, I've got one like this. He's got a ring on that he uses to seal the letter again. The ring is the stamp of the king. Pretty much, you have that stamp, you can make anybody think that what you have written and put in this envelope is essentially from the king. Why does he have the ring? Because it was his father's. Okay? The king also has a stamp, another stamp, bigger one. There's a position called the, keeper of the seal in Elizabethan England. The person's sole job was to, when the queen had to issue royal documents, it was that person's job to keep the seal of the state so that when she needed it, he would bring it to her and it would be used to stamp on a document, okay? Usually on wax on a document. So, it shall go hard, but I will delve 1 yard below their minds and blow them at the moon. 'Tis most sweet when in one line 2 crafts directly meet. That is, like this. Or 2 crafts can mean 2 plots. I don't know what your gloss is for it. 2:10. 2:11. 2 acts of guile with a quibble on the sense of 2 ships. So 2 acts of guile, 2 plots. What are the 2 plots? This man shall set me packing. I'll lug the guts into the neighbor room. Good night, mother. Indeed, this counselor who is now most still, most secret, and most grave. Still, not moving. Secret, not speaking. Most grave, very serious. Who was in life a foolish, prating knave. Why is Polonius dead? I don't mean, why did Hamlet kill him? He killed him because he was spying on him. But why is Polonius dead? There's a scene earlier in the play that if Polonius had paid attention, he wouldn't be dead anymore. Well, sorry, he wouldn't be dead, not anymore. The scene is, these few precepts, look thou character. Write these nuggets of wisdom, write these proverbs, he says, in your mind, Laertes. See, the problem is, I've said it before, Polonius doesn't follow his own advice. What was his last piece of advice? The last thing he said to him, and this one thing above all else, to thine own self be true, and it follows as night to day, you cannot be false to anyone else. What is that, to thine own self be true? Follow your inner moral code. Well, what's Polonius's, as best we can guess, his inner moral code? He just told it to his son. And he doesn't follow it. And because he doesn't follow it, he's neither true to himself, nor is he true to anybody else. That is why he dies. That is why Hamlet emphasizes this counselor is now most still, no longer moving, most secret, because counselors need to be able to keep secrets. You know, the whole thing about, I can't remember which one. One of the trials Trump is involved in involves immunity and executive privilege and such. And it ultimately all revolves around, can a president be charged for presidential actions taken while president? And there's those who say no one's above the law, can be charged, etc. And there are those who say, yes, that's all true. But if we start charging presidents for actions they take while president, once they leave office, what door does that open? It means any future president, when they're considering any action, they're going to go, but what's going to happen when I'm out of office? Kind of a thing. Well, Hamlet's saying he is, and so, let me get back to part of the point. And so they take advice from their counselors, from their advisors. That advice given by those counselors today is covered by what's called executive privilege. Okay? Only one time in history has a counselor, an advisor to the president, been charged with a crime, who's claimed executive privilege and then been jailed for not testifying. One time in history. Because courts have generally said advisors have got to be able to speak freely. The problem is, here, what was Polonius' advice to his son? Keep your thoughts to yourself. You can't say that if your job is giving advice. Okay? So, he drags Polonius out of the room when we come to Act 4. King and queen come in with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And the king says, there's matter in these sighs, these profound heaves. The sighs and heaves are the sighs and heaves that they've heard and seen Hamlet doing. And when he says there's matter there, he means there is a source, there is a problem, there is something bubbling up. And he says, 'tis fit we understand them. We need to figure out what the root problem is. Where's your son? She tells Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to leave. How's Hamlet? Mad as the sea and wind. Sorry, I misspoke earlier. When I said Hamlet told her to tell Claudius, I completely reversed it, that he wasn't crazy. He's telling her, tell him I am bet you know what out of my mind. Just a Looney Tune. Okay? So she says, he's mad as the sea and wind, when both contend which is the mightier. In his lawless fit. Lawless, what does that mean? Against the law? Could be. It could also mean lawless in the sense of unrestrained, uncontrolled by his reason. He did what? Behind the arras, hearing something stir, whips out his rapier, cries, a rat, and in this brainish apprehension, meaning his brain was infected, and apprehension, thinking something, she's implying wrongly, look at your gloss, headstrong, passionate, conception, imagination, brainish, headstrong, passionate, apprehension, conception, imagination. He kills the unseen good old man. Now, from what we've seen in the play, is Polonius good? Is he a moral, upright character? Not necessarily. One of the ways we can see that that's not the case is his advice to his daughter. What does he say about Hamlet's love for her? It's not love. He just wants to have sex. Why, and here's where I'm getting at the good part, why does he say that? Because he knows that to be true? No. He says that because he thinks back what he was like when he was a young man. He's telling us all he wanted was to get into women's pants. Oh, heavy deed, the king says. It had been so with us had we been there. Notice what she doesn't say. He killed the good old man saying, what, is it the king? But Claudius knows. So he says, as long as Hamlet is free, he's a danger to all. To you, to us, royal we, to everyone. How shall this bloody deed be answered? What does he mean? Answering this bloody deed? I haven't talked about it much. I need to mention this in my other classes. At the heart of Germanic society, even to some extent after it becomes Christian, Germanic meaning not, just modern day Germany, but ancient Denmark, Norway, Sweden, England, okay? before and after they become Christian, is the idea of the feud. What's a feud? We have a local one. Not quite here, up in Kentucky. Hatfields and the McCoys. What's the basic process of a feud? Somebody kills, hurts somebody in your family. Okay? What then is incumbent upon you? To hurt someone in their family or kill someone in their family. And then what do? They go after you again. And what do? You go after them again. And where are we? We're in modern day Israel between the Israelis and the Arabs, or the Israelis and the Palestinians. That is a feud. It doesn't just go back 40 years to the Yom Kippur War of 73, or the Six-Day War of 67, or the War for Israeli independence in 48. It goes back when? The book of freaking Genesis. Abraham has two sons. One according to the law, according to the covenant, Isaac. The other one from his concubine wife. Jew, Arab. And they've been at each other, hammer and tongs, since then. What he's getting at is, this is going to lead to something. Who's going to answer for this death? Why does Claudius ask that question? He thinks he's going to answer for it. He thinks it's going to be said to be his fault. It will be laid to us, whose providence should have kept short, restrained, and out of haunt this mad young man. I'm going to be blamed for it because I didn't lock up your crazy son, is what he's saying. Okay? In this act, however, he's going to come up with another plot. Hamlet has many plots. And that plot's going to be what? What is a revenge tragedy all about? Revenge. Notice, Hamlet is seemingly taking his time to get his revenge on Claudius. Who else now must get revenge? You could say Ophelia, but women don't usually get the revenge. She has a brother. There we go. He can get revenge. Okay? But so much was our love. That is, I didn't lock Hamlet up. Why? So much was our love, we would not understand what was most fit. Now, who's Claudius talking to? Gertrude. When he says so much was our love, is he being honest? And love for whom? Gertrude, possibly Hamlet. His first speech to Hamlet, he calls him what? Cousin, son. Now I will be your father. Some readers / critics think he's being serious there. Okay? He says, I so much loved Hamlet, what? That I didn't understand what I should do. We often hear accounts. There's a mass shooting, and it's done by a child, teenager, early 20s, or late teens. And the parents are questioned, and often what we hear is, I had no idea. My son's a good person. My daughter's a good person, you know. Why? Because we see what we want to see rather than what should be plainly before our eyes. But like the owner of a foul disease, to keep it from divulging, let it feed even on the pith of life. Where is he? Where's Hamlet now? He's taking care of the corpse. to draw apart the body he hath killed, o'er whom his very madness, like some ore among a mineral of metal's base, shows itself pure. Notice mining imagery again, just like we had. Why? What does she mean by that? Okay. She said Hamlet is an absolute lunatic, and yet he's taking the time and the care and the attention to dispose of Polonius's body. She's implying there's still good in him. He's not totally gone. So he says, Gertrude, we need to go. Why? Before the sunlight hits the mountains, Hamlet's going to be on that boat headed towards England. He calls Rosencrantz and Guildenstern back in, and he says, go find Hamlet. He's killed Polonius. Notice how he puts it, line 34. Hamlet in madness hath Polonius slain. Gertrude said that in this brainish apprehension he killed the unseen good old man. What they've both said is Hamlet was crazy when he killed Polonius. Okay? Hamlet's the character, is going to use that same excuse when we get to Act 5. And it's going to be, I'm pretty sure about this, I'm not 100% positive, that it's the first time in human history that someone uses insanity as a defense plea. That is, as a means of being found innocent of murder. So, scene 2. Scene 2. Hamlet comes in, safely stowed, he tells us. That is, Polonius is taken care of, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come in. What have you done with the dead body? Compounded it with dust, whereto 'tis kin. Now, that sounds like he's buried it. Why does he say Polonius' body is kin to dust? Genesis, because from dust thou art, and to dust shalt thou return, God says when he pronounces the curse on Adam and Eve for having disobeyed. Tell us where it is, that we may take it thence and bear it to the chapel. Why are they going to take it to the chapel? Because Polonius is going to receive a burial under the auspices of the church. As I've said, it's a Christian society. Don't believe it. Don't believe what? That I can keep your counsel and not mine own. Besides, to be demanded of a sponge, what replication should be made by the son of a king? Now, they hear that and they're like, what the hell is he talking about? Do you think I'm a sponge? Aye, sir, that soaks up the king's countenance, his rewards, his authorities. Hamlet's speaking metaphor. What are they speaking? If you're familiar with the Guardians of the Galaxy, they're like Drax. They don't use metaphor. Everything's got to be straight, literal truth. Okay? What did Hamlet say when he first saw Polonius? Polonius says, my lord, do you know me? Aye, very well. Thou art a fishmonger. Hamlet is, playing intellectual three-dimensional chess with them. What's he mean? They soak up the king's countenance, meaning these two are always hovering, revolving around the king. What is Hamlet implying by that? They're plotting with him. They soak up his rewards. He pays them for doing things. What does he know? What does he know is the reason they are there? To watch him. But such officers do the king best service in the end. In the end what? In their end. When they die. He keeps them like an ape, an apple in the corner of his jaw. First, he says, mouthed, to be last swallowed. When he needs what you have gleaned, when he needs the truth you've gotten, so to speak, It is but squeezing you, and you shall be dry again. In other words, you damn fools, you don't understand. He is merely using you. And when he's done, what? Throw away. You know, we have a phrase today, to be thrown under the bus. To be thrown under the bus means you're no longer useful to the person. I understand you not, my lord. Hamlet, good. A knavish speech sleeps in a foolish ear. And I think what he means, what Hamlet means by that, is it's because you're a fool. And you don't understand riddles. Okay? Where's the body? The body is with the king, but the king is not with the body. The king is a thing. Okay, so the body is with the king. What is he talking about? Polonius is not with the king. He's not talking about that body. He's talking about this. The theory of the two bodies of the king. It's a political theory. Okay? And the idea is, well, the king obviously has his own body, his own physical body. But the king or monarch also has another body. We saw it in Oedipus. Okay? That body is the state. Remember the scene in Oedipus where Oedipus is talking to Creon. This is after Oedipus has accused Creon of conspiring. And they're talking, Creon's talking about how crazy Oedipus is. And Oedipus says, the city is the king's. Because Creon says, oh man, you'd be a great king of one. The body is with the king. That's implying the state body. But the king is not with the body. He's saying the king is not, what? In harmony with the state. Why so? According to this reading, because he killed the previous king. He's not rightful body of the state. Okay? Another possibility is the body is with the king, but the king is not with the body. Well, what's the king currently? No, let me rephrase that. Who's the king we have seen that is not with his body? The ghost. The king is a thing. A thing, my lord? A king is what? A king is not a thing. A king is a person. King is a thing of nothing. And in Shakespeare's day, that word nothing, you know, remember Hamlet puns on the word nothing in the scene with Ophelia just before the play was in the play. You know, it's a fair thought to lay between me and the maid's legs. And she's like, what, my lord? And he says, nothing. In Shakespeare's day, it's pronounced noting. Okay? The reason that's important is this can mean no thing, nothing, or it can mean noting like mark or pay attention to. The king is a thing of which? Nothing or noting. We should pay attention. We should keep an eye on. Bring me to him. Scene 3. King comes in, says, I've sent for Hamlet and to find the body. How dangerous it is that this man goes loose. Yet must we not, yet must not we put the strong law on him. Why? He's loved of the distracted multitude. What does that mean, the distracted multitude? Here's an example, political example. Again, I don't care your politics, my politics are irrelevant. What seems to, and political commentators on the right and left say this. It drives commentators on the left absolutely crazy because of it. What seemed to happen every time Trump was indicted. There are 4 indictments out there against him. One of them with like 90 charges, okay? Every time a court indicted him, his popularity rose. Normally, a politician gets indicted, they're done. That's it. Usually, they resign. Well, obviously, he can't resign. But his popularity, his poll numbers, he's like, come on, keep throwing them at me. Why? King Claudius, would say, because the multitude, the populace, the people are distracted. What does that word distracted literally mean again? Dis means bad, evil, wrong, or away, right? Tracted, drawn, like with a tractor. So the mind, the attention is drawn away. And for Claudius's perspective, drawn away evilly, wrongly, badly. Why? Because they ought to be looking at me. They ought to be praising me. But instead, everybody's in love with Hamlet. Remember what Ophelia said. He is the glass of fashion. Everyone wants to be like Hamlet. He is loved of the distracted multitude who, like not in their judgment, notice, they're not thinking with their minds, they're thinking with what? Their eyes. See, one thing about Hamlet, he ought to be handsome. He ought to be the kind of man that both women and men look at and go, it's just not right. It's just not fair that any man can be that good looking and such, that attractive. Okay? Who like not of their judgment but their eyes, and where 'tis so, that is where this happens, that people are swayed by someone's visual appearance, the offender's scourge is weighed, but never the offense. So, it has to be seen by the public that this sending him away is a deliberate pause. That is, that it wasn't merely the reaction to something he's done. The public must think, oh yeah, this was planned a long time ago. Look at my calendar, so to speak. Okay? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come in. Where is he? Where's the dead body? And we don't know. We can't get anything from Hamlet. Okay, so where's Hamlet then? He's outside, guarded. We didn't just leave him there to wander the halls, kill willy-nilly. Bring him in. Hamlet comes in. Hamlet, where's Polonius? At supper. What? At supper? Where? Maybe he isn't dead. Maybe he was only mostly dead, Not where he eats, but where is eaten. Who eats humans? Cannibals. A certain convocation of politic worms are e'en at him. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. We fat all creatures, else do fat us, and we fat ourselves for maggots. Your fat king, your lean beggar, is but variable service, 2 dishes, but to 1 table, that's the end. And the king says, alas, alas. What the hell is Hamlet talking about? He's at supper, not where he's eating, but where the means him. Where he is eaten. Where do dead bodies get eaten? I mean, if you leave them outside, they're going to get eaten by birds and wild animals and such. When you bury them, no matter what kind of protective covering you put them in, casket, cement, vault, what's going to happen eventually? They're going to decompose. Part of that is going to be by being eaten by bugs. And he tells us what he means. A certain convocation of politic worms are even at him. Okay? A convocation of politic worms. Everyone takes that to be an allusion to an historical event. A convocation of politic worms. Politics just means they're working together. Politics is about human relations, more specifically, human power relations. Politics is all about shared and sharing power among a group of people. Okay? So, a convocation of politic worms. In 1521, there was a convocation, a meeting, at the town of Worms, that's how it's pronounced, Germany. It was called the Diet of Worms. Diet, not diet. But the same word, saying the spelled way, has both meanings. A diet is a meeting. A diet is how you arrange your food to eat, or what foods you choose to eat. Notice the pun Shakespeare is doing there. The reason this is important, remember when I mentioned several days ago Martin Luther? And Martin Luther on October 31st, 1517, nailed those 95 theses to the church door at Wittenberg. And the reason he did that is because he wanted to debate these points, right? Well, nobody took him up then. So he started writing all kinds of tracts and books and articles and pamphlets, etc. In 1521, Martin Luther was invited to the Diet of Worms by the Holy Roman Emperor. He was told, you get to have your debate. He's like, cool. He is granted what's called safe passage. That is, he will safely arrive at the Diet and he will safely leave. No one is going to kill him on the way or kill him when he leaves. So he arrives there. He's led into a room. And in the room is a table. And on that table is everything Luther had written over the last 4 years. All piled up. Here's the debate he gets to have. Take it all back. That's it. Those are the terms of the debate. Recant everything you've written. Say, I was wrong. Same thing essentially happens a few years later, a little over 100 years later, to Galileo. When he proves the earth is not the center of the universe, but that the moon, the sun, the earth moves around the sun, and the sun is itself moving. The church forces him to recant, and he does. Okay? So, this convocation of Worms, Luther doesn't recant, by the way. He goes back the next morning, he asks, 24 hours to pray. He goes back the next morning, and according to his most famous biographer, says, here I stand. That is, every word I've written here is true. Unless you can prove to me by reason, conscience, or the word of God that it's wrong. Okay? He leaves, he's kidnapped by friends who lock him up in Wittenberg Castle, and he starts translating the Bible from Latin into German. Remember I had written over here, or might have been over here, the Protestant mottos, sola scriptura, sola fide, sola gratia, sola scriptura, the Bible alone. He wanted to put the Bible in German. Why? So that any ordinary, everyday German could have the Bible and figure out how to get good with God. Okay? So, he's being eaten by a convocation of politic worms. Meaning, he's buried. But he's not literally buried. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. Or diet. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. He's referring to the emperor because the Holy Roman Emperor was the one, who was German, by the way, was the one who called this meeting. Okay? We fed all creatures, so he's explaining what that line, your worm is your only emperor for diet. We fed all creatures, else to fat us. He's assuming we're all meat eaters, that we're not vegans. Okay? So what do? We fatten up cows, we fatten up pigs, we fatten up lambs. Why? So that when we eat them, they will fatten us. Why do we fatten ourselves? To live fat, dumb, and happy lives? No. We fat ourselves for maggots. And that takes us back to his conversation with Polonius. His first conversation with Polonius about the sun kissing dead dogs, breeding maggots in them, keep your daughter out of the sun. What does he mean we fatten ourselves for maggots? He's talking about our reasons for existing. What's the purpose of human life? To feed the worms. That's pretty bleak. Your fat king and your lean beggar is but variable service. Meaning, there are two kinds of dishes. Your fat king is like the loaded Thanksgiving feast. And your lean beggar is like bread and water. What do they both ultimately do? They pass through the body. Two dishes, but to one table, that's the end. What's the table? Death. What's Hamlet just said about kings and beggars? They all die, right? Go back to Claudius's initial speech. Or the one responding to Gertrude and Hamlet and the quibbling on scenes. Every living thing, what? Dies. That's it. That's why the king says, alas, alas. Hamlet says, the purpose for our lives is to feed the maggots. A man may fish with the worm that hath eat of a king, and eat of the fish that hath fed of that worm. Okay, now let's think about that for a minute. So, the king that's being referenced has to have already died, has been buried. So, a man gets ready to go fishing, and he digs up a worm. And the worm has crawled into the dead king's grave, eaten of that dead king. So now, part of the dead king is in the worm. He gets the worm, he baits the hook, the fish eats the worm, the man catches the fish, eats the fish that ate the worm, that ate the king, and what happens to that fish that he eats? It goes through his body. What do you mean, Hamlet? Nothing but to show you how a king may go a progress through the guts of a beggar. Go a progress, that's a technical term. The king or monarch would go on a progress through, in England, would go on a progress through the realm. That is, they would take a road trip. And the reason for that was for the monarch to personally, at times, dispense justice at various cities throughout. So when you knew the king was going to be in your town, if you had a problem with a neighbor, something that the local sheriff couldn't handle, you would appeal to the king. This regularly happened, okay? And the king would essentially hear all comers as long as it got done in the amount of time he had at each place. So that's the going of progress. Nothing but to show you how a king may go a progress through the guts of a beggar. What has Hamlet just told Claudius? He's either telling him this is what you are, or this is what you are going to be. You're nothing more than a piece of shit, man. It's it. You're going to die. A worm's going to eat you. Some guy's going to use that worm to catch a fish. He's going to eat that fish, and you're going to be expelled right through him. Where's Polonius? See, I think Claudius understood exactly what he said. How dare you? In heaven? Well, that's pretty generous of Hamlet. Polonius died, saved, Send thither, send someone else there. And if your messenger doesn't find him heaven, seek him in the other place yourself. Go to hell, Claudius. But if you don't find him there, if you don't find him within this month, you shall nose him as you go up the stairs into the lobby. Why does it say you shall nose him? He's starting to get ripe. The body is already starting to decay. Okay? Go. Hamlet, I'll stay here until you come back. Hamlet, for your own safety, you're going off to England. Okay? He says, so prepare yourself. Hamlet, for England, yay, road trip. Now, he's obviously playing this up. I, Hamlet, good. So is it if thou knewest our purposes. Notice that's not on the side. But it does have a double meaning. Hamlet, I see a cherub that sees them. Cherub, an angel of knowledge and wisdom. One given to understand the mind of God, partially at least, as much as an angel can do that. Hamlet saying, I know what you have planned. But come, England! Farewell, dear mother. King, thy loving father, Hamlet. Back up just a second. Yeah, Gertrude's not in this scene. So he says, farewell, dear mother. King, thy loving father. I'm not your mother, Hamlet. Hamlet, my mother. No, you're my mother. Father and mother is man and wife. Again, Genesis. For this reason shall a man leave his parents and cleave with his wife. Man and wife is one flesh, and the two shall become one in the Christian tradition. And so, my mother. Verbally, he's just done what to Claudius? He's castrated him. He's emasculated him. Claudius kind of understands, but Claudius also thinks Hamlet's what? Totally crazy. Yet there's method in that madness. So, Hamlet leaves. King says, follow him at foot. Tempt him with, get him on that shit fast. Okay? Everybody leaves but the king. And now the king tells us specifically what's going to happen to Hamlet. He says, by letters congruing to that effect, the present death of Hamlet. Do it, England. He's kind of speaking to himself. Come on, England. As soon as you get these letters, kill him. Till I know 'tis done, however my haps, that is, whatever fortune happens, my joys were ne'er begun. I won't be happy until I know Hamlet is dead. All right? Scene 4. I know we've only got about a minute. We see Fortinbras of Norway. This is young Fortinbras. This is Fortinbras Jr. He was alluded to earlier in the play, in the king's first long speech. Okay? And he and his captain talk a little bit. Hamlet comes in. They all leave. Hamlet comes in and speaks to the captain and says, whose men are these? They're of Norway. Why? What are they here for? Against some part of Poland. In other words, they've left Norway. If you have a map, Norway's up here, Denmark's here, Germany and Poland are over here. They've come down into Denmark. They're going to go through Germany into Poland. They're on an expedition war against Poland. Against the main, that is he launching a full-scale war against all of Poland? Or some frontier? The captain says, nope. We go to gain a little patch of ground that hath in it no profit but the name to pay 5 ducats. This little piece of ground we're going to fight for, he says it's worth 5 ducats. Like, these 2 tiles right here. This is all of Poland. He's going to fight to win those 2 tiles. He goes, it's not enough to farm. But nor will it yield to Norway or the Pole a rank or rate. The Pole won't defend it, Hamlet says. It's already garrisoned. The Polish king has already put an army in there. Hamlet's like, what? 2,000 souls and 20,000 ducats will not debate the question of the straw. We'll stop there since it's 8:55. And pick up there on Friday. Have a good day. Wake up.